I've done my deep dive on the top prospects in the NBA draft. Okay, I can be talked into either of the top three. I could be talked into Peterson, Dybantsa, Boozer, not so much Caleb Wilson. He's a good four, but those top three guys, I could be talked into either one of those guys as the best guy in this draft. But I keep ending up coming back to Darryn Peterson. And I am surprised I don't hear him as an option for number one more, and how it just feels like it's an assumption that AJ Dybantsa is going to go to Washington at number one. And not just like from a reporting standpoint that he ought to go number one, that he's clearly the number one guy in this draft. And every once in a while, when I hear somebody swerve, they're going to Boozer as the number one guy and that they would take Boozer number one. Nobody's really talking about Darryn Peterson as like the guy that they would take at number one. And I'm telling you, I'm going to take a stand right now. That's the guy I would take at number one. I've watched a bunch of film on all of these guys, and I keep going back to Darryn Peterson. I don't think he's going to go number one. I think he should. I don't think there's any question he has the highest ceiling of any of these guys. There's zero, and his ceiling is so much higher. Like, you could see a guy like Darryn Peterson, who's 6'5", 6'6", with like a 6'11" wingspan, crazy athletic. I went back and watched the high school film on him. The way he moves, you can't teach it. His change of pace, his speed, his athleticism, the smoothness with which he moves across the court. I didn't even want to say this on the podcast, but I'm gonna. Like, the name that I keep thinking, and I know it's sacrilegious, I keep thinking Kobe Bryant. Every time I watch him, he just looks like Kobe to me. And I'm like, why? You don't see guys that move like that all the time. Defensively, he's awesome. Great instincts. I know it wasn't a great year for him at Kansas last year, but you know, you watch what he can do. You watch the moments where he goes like one-on-one when it was Kansas versus BYU against just thoroughly outplaying Dybantsa. To me, he's got the highest ceiling, and I can't escape it. If I'm picking number one, I want a guy who could potentially be the best player in the league, and I think Peterson's ceiling is that high. And I can't say that about Dybantsa or Boozer, right? Like, for the record, I love AJ Dybantsa. I love his attitude. If you queue up 15 minutes of AJ Dybantsa film, I'm like, I'm taking that guy number one, right? Like, to me, it's very slim. But then I always end up going back to the Peterson tape, and I'm like, no, I want that guy. Dybantsa is a great, you hear the leadership skills and all the things with him. I have real questions about his game, though, right? That three-point shot that he has is so slow on the windup. The shooting percentage wasn't great there at BYU. I loved his ability to get to the rim and get to the free throw line at BYU. I think he's going to be able to get to the foul line quite a bit at the NBA level. But if that three ball doesn't come around, then I have real concerns about his ceiling offensively. And then, there's some turnover issues there. He really likes that skip pass. He's not a great passer on the move. He's usually pretty accurate, but he's sometimes just a little slow with the delivery and the reads. And I just wonder if turnovers are going to be an issue with him at the next level. And with Boozer, I love everything about Cam Boozer. He's a local kid in Miami. I'm not going to slander him. The only thing I'm going to say about Boozer is, what's the great team built around a guy like Cam Boozer right now? He's an awesome floor raiser, but if I'm picking number one, I'm not sure I want the floor raiser. I kind of want the guy who has the highest ceiling, and that's why I keep going back to Peterson. And it's not just the high ceiling with him. I also think he might be the safest pick. His shooting stroke is awesome. I know the numbers weren't necessarily where they wanted to be, but he was, again, weird system, weird year in Kansas. To me, Peterson at his worst is Ray Allen. Like, that's the worst outcome for Darryn Peterson. The best outcome might be the best player in the NBA. That is his ultimate ceiling. And I love everything. I know the leadership issues are there. I get it. I know he's described himself as basically like an introvert or like an antisocial kind of guy. You watch AJ Dybantsa talk to the media and stuff. He's so comfortable. He's got real charisma, real aura. I get it. But I'll also propose this. Like, Dybantsa's year at BYU, that went about as good as it possibly could be, right? Like, if you were to just dream up a season for Dybantsa, it's basically that. The only thing that he fell short of was like winning the national title. But that's basically, if you're a prospect, as good as a year could get collegiately. If you're Peterson, that's probably the worst a year could have gone for you at Kansas. And the more reporting that comes out of Kansas, the more it's like Bill Self wasn't exactly running the best ship there at that time. Like, he kind of maybe sabotaged Peterson a few different ways in that. I know the creatine thing was a little weird and all that kind of stuff, but if Peterson's season was as worst as it can be, and Dybantsa's season was as good as it could possibly be, and we're still talking about these guys in the slimmest of margins, I like the upside in Peterson a lot more. So, Mike, I'll stop there. I could keep going, but I'm taking Darryn Peterson number 1 if I have the number 1 pick, and I keep going back to it, and I feel really good about it. To me, he should be the number 1 guy in this draft, and I don't really understand why more people aren't on that same page with me.
Well, Darryn Peterson's on that same page with you, if nothing else. Since
There we
he's
go.
reportedly only worked out for Washington, and he is that might be as much of a thing to Utah being like, hey, don't pick me number 2 as it is like, hey, I think I'm going to go number 1, right? But you got to love and appreciate the confidence, if nothing else. I echo a lot of the things you say. Like I'm by no means a draft expert, but like you, since the end of the regular season, I've been throwing myself into the film and the numbers and stuff like that, just trying to get a sense of who these guys are before we go into the draft and, summer league and stuff like that. And we get to see more on-court impressions against NBA caliber-ish talent. But the one thing that concerns me with Peterson, I think, is that so many of his defenders and his upside cases rely upon go back to his high school footage right. And I think that there is the health was a real thing this year. We never, it feels like we never saw him 100%, but he was playing. There is a risk that we saw him at close to 100% last year, where he was not really able to get to the rim as often. He didn't look nearly as shifty and explosive, I think. How much of that was health? How much of that was sort of a poor Kansas fit in the system, a poor fit in the Kansas system? Non-zero, but we don't know how much. And I think that's the question mark you have with a guy like Peterson. I will say, I think the physical profile, is great for him. It's very similar to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was way back in the day, which proves to your point that, a guard can still be the best player in the league. I think, Shai's not unquestionably the best player in the league, but certainly he has a lot of people who'd say he is. That proves your point that Peterson can. And Peterson's a way better three-point shooter than Shai is right now. I think Peterson's going to step into the league as a better three-point shooter than Shai, which kind of proves your point. So love that. But it is tough when you see a guy who's as skilled and as multi-tooled as Dybantsa, who shares some of the same shiftiness as Peterson, I'd say, in the mid-range and sort of inside the arc. Not the shooter from outside by any means, but it is nice to have a guy who's just 5 inches taller, who's going to look like Jason Tatum coming to the league instead of a shooting guard. This is a guy who can play shooting guard, but also play power forward if he gets big enough. So I go back and forth on this. Like I said, I defer to the experts, and the experts largely are saying it's Dybantsa, but you have enough people saying Peterson is a number 1 caliber pick. And I'm trying to think who would be a better fit with what Washington's trying to do. They have Trae Young. They have Anthony Davis right now. Both of those are TBDs. Trae Young is technically an unrestricted free agent, although all the reporting is that he's going back to Washington on some sort of 3 years for $120 million. If you're Peterson has proven he's amazing off ball, but you will also want to give him lots of on ball reps. Will that fit next to Trae Young as well as Dybantsa would be as sort of this alpha wing scorer kind of drop off the dribble face up game kind of thing? I don't know. I think that Washington, the fit might be a little bit better with Dybantsa, and Peterson might find his way to Utah despite his wishes. But we'll see. We'll find out.
If I'm Washington, I don't care about fit. Do I really think Trae Young, Anthony Davis, or any of these young guys, as much as I like some of them, I'm not sold on anybody being on the team in 4 or 5 years. If I'm picking number 1, I'm like, this is the guy. I never like to pick for fit if I'm at the top of the draft. You're at this point in the draft because your team sucks. The fit doesn't matter. I just think if you take Darryn Peterson, you're taking the guy with the highest possible ceiling. And maybe there's an impression from general managers of, look, I really just need the safer pick. If I don't end up, maybe the job isn't to get the best player out of the top 3. It's just to make sure I don't end up with the guy who's a bust. And I think because of some of the off the court concerns with Peterson, there's some weird Kawhi stuff. Is this guy just going to go AWOL and we're not ever going to, maybe there's a Markelle Fultz thing here that there's some injury, but all the reporting, I will say this, you got to check in on the medicals, make sure that all your research on the medicals and all your background stuff, check out. If it doesn't, don't take him. All right. To be very clear, but all the reporting right now indicates that he's fine physically, everything, he's clearing all the medical tests right now. And so assuming that, I do want the best guy. That to me is the guy. I don't want to be as good as AJ Dybantsa and Cam Boozer might be. we might be looking at like oh my God, how did Peterson slip to 2? How did Peterson slip to 3? He's so obviously the best guy in this draft. I'm taking a swing on that guy. There's so many ways. Again, going back to the safe part, I think he's the safest of those 3. There's so many ways for it to work out for him. At the very worst,
shooting
he's
all
a guy who's going to
plays.
space the floor. Yeah, he's a better defender than Dybantsa has proven to be. He's more versatile defensively than Boozer, which is the big kind of concern with him. I'm taking Peterson number 1.